Kevin, thank you very much for joining What's on Stage. Um, Now is a fascinating documentary that really lifts the lid on what it's like to tour the world with a really big production, Richard III. I wondered, 2 years since you first played the role, what your kind of abiding memories of that time are.
What a monster the part is. How I can fully understand that the first actors that played Richard III must have shoved Shakespeare up against a bar wall and said, "Don't you ever write anything like that again," because he hadn't yet employed the device he employed later on, which was to give the leading actor breaks. So out of 24 scenes, I think Richard's in 22 of them. So it's a mad cap, sort of insane role. And I understand why actors want to play it and have played it. But now that I've done it, I can understand why actors will never play it again once they've done it. It's absolutely mad.
You took in a huge range of venues, countries, and cities. I wondered if there was perhaps a particular one that sticks in your memory.
You know, we had a lot of incredible theaters and great experiences, particularly I think some of the places we went to where English was not the first language. But probably as an actor, the one place that stood out for all of us would be the Epidaurus outdoor amphitheater in Greece, which sat 1,400 people. And there was just something about being in a place that had been really where theater began in many ways. That Sam Mendes joked that if they hadn't built this place, none of us would have jobs. And I suppose the majesty of it, the environment of it, the history of it, the sense that you were part of something that was much bigger than yourself. I mean, Julius Caesar sat there and watched plays. And we were doing a play that was written by a man who wrote a play about Julius Caesar eventually. So it was kind of extraordinary. Those three performances, I think, for all of us as actors will go down as one of the most unique and remarkable that we've ever had.
Richard III ran, of course, as part of the Bridge project between the Brooklyn Academy of Music and the Old Vic. How important do you think that kind of transatlantic collaboration is, or was, to Richard III and is to theatre more widely?
Well, it was great. You know, people may not know that this production of Richard III was the fifth in a series of 3 seasons of work that Sam Mendes directed. Quite remarkably, he took out literally 3.5, nearly 4 years to just do these productions. And I think that what was really valuable about it in all of the companies that came together and went around the world was that this sort of notion that you could bring Americans and Brits together and produce classic work and it wouldn't be shit. That it could work, that actors could come from wherever they come from, sound however they sound, and make Shakespeare come alive. And I think for the Americans it was incredibly important. I think for the Brits it was great to be able to settle alongside an American cast. And I think all the productions that Sam did were unique and made the argument, and I think proved the point, which was quite exciting.
You recently, of course, returned to the Old Vic stage in your first one-man show there, Clarence Darrow. How does it feel to be back on that stage for the first time, and back in that character as well?
Well, it's a very different experience. I've never done a one-man show. I've never worked in the round, and the Old Vic, we've reconfigured it for the next number of productions to be in the round. So there is virtually nowhere to hide. And there's no actor to turn to on stage and say, "What's my line? I'm lost." So you really do have to rely on yourself. But I like this character a lot. I've had, as you mentioned, the opportunity to play him on 2 other occasions, once in a production at the Old Vic when we did Inherit the Wind. But I also did a film about Clarence Darrow's life about 20 years ago. And I just have loved the last, I mean, I've only done 7 performances so far, but I've loved the feeling that I'm getting from an audience, particularly a British audience, that don't know anything about Clarence Darrow. And they're being introduced to an entirely new figure. And he was, for many people in America, the father of the legal profession. And I think that because of the issues that the play grapples with, it's quite remarkable how relevant these issues are even today. And these are things that he was fighting for or against in the late 1800s and the early 1900s, and yet they're still happening today. We're still grappling with it.
You've been at the Old Vic now for 10 years, which is an incredible achievement. And I wondered what you hope your legacy to that venue will be.
Well, I'm not going to have a long goodbye, so I don't leave the Old Vic until August of 2015. And so there'll be time enough next year to talk about that. But I will say that just in general, I am most pleased that it's going to continue after I leave. That was one of the most important aspects of what I started out to do 11 years ago now, was that I wanted it to keep going long after I was gone. And having Matthew Warchus sign on to become the next artistic director for 6 years means that's exactly what's gonna happen, and that's fantastic news.
What do you think you'll do post Old Vic?
I'll take every job that Stephen Fry has. That's my intention. And host the Academy Awards, do a couple of albums, and who knows? Not run for office, that's for sure.
Shame. So my final question, Kevin, is actually just a little quiz, which is called House of Cards or Shakespeare. So I'm going to read you a few short quotes and would like you to try and ascertain whether they were spoken by Frank Underwood or by the Bard. So my first is, what's done cannot be undone.
That would be Shakespeare.
Correct. Macbeth. Time will kill us all one day.
That would be Shakespeare.
Wrong. That's actually House of Cards.
But did I say that, or someone else said that? You see?
Believe that was Frank Underwood, but
all right. Well,
you have done many episodes
that. You
now,
may have to prove that on your website.
Okay. Proximity to power deludes some into thinking they wield it.
That is House of Cards.
Correct. Suspicion always haunts the guilty mind.
That could be either, but I think it's Shakespeare.
Correct. Henry VI. Hell is empty and all devils are there.
Shakespeare.
Sorry, here. But yes, Tempest. And finally, democracy is so overrated.
Well, I believe that Francis said that.
He did indeed.
In a recent episode, yes.
Well, Kevin, thank you for playing
Thank you.
and for talking to What's on
Thank
Stage
you.
today.
Thank you much. You bet.